Yeah. My name's Ron Boyter. I'm the Director of Legal Services for the Georgia Justice Project. And I went to undergrad at the University of Georgia and afterwards was in the Peace Corps briefly and had a medical injury that forced me to leave the Peace Corps. And I then enrolled in Walter F. George School of Law in Macon and did a lot of work working with people who were HIV positive. That's what I had done in the Peace Corps and prior to law school, and came out of law school and began working here at Atlanta Legal Aid with people who were HIV positive. So kind of doing community service, and the public interest law was something that was very important to me that needed to be done. It was kind of what I had planned on my career being. After a couple of years at Legal Aid, I wanted to leave and get more trial experience, and actually went to work at the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, and was lucky enough to get a lot of experience doing trial work early, and was recognized and got moved up to the Major Case Division, which is the division that handles all the homicides and high-profile cases. And kind of enjoyed it and kind of got caught up in everything, and next thing I knew, I'd been there about 7.5 years. And so the decision came down to, what am I going to do? Am I going to be a career prosecutor? What's my life going to entail? And I really wanted to go back to public interest work. That's where my heart had always been, and that's what I wanted to do. And Doug Amar, the director of the program, and I had had cases against each other in the past, and I knew him and spoke to him about basically just kind of being open about what was going on in the community and any openings that come up, if he would think about letting somebody know that I was interested in coming back to the community. And he informed me that they were here at the Justice Project, that they were thinking about creating a Director of Legal Services position. And we continued to talk, and eventually that was a position that they offered me. So coming here was kind of a culmination of putting together the training that I received through doing a lot of heavy trial work with the DA's office, and my commitment or interest in wanting to continue to do public interest work. So it was kind of a long route, but I think it ended up to be a good place. I just kind of always, growing up and seeing things, you see a lot of injustice. You see things that shouldn't be, and honestly, a lot of punk music was something that I got into when I was very young, and most of the punk music that I was interested in was more the political stuff, with the Dead Kennedys and groups like that talked about what was going on. And so occasionally I would hear something and not know what it was, and have to go look something up and realize, oh my gosh, that really happened. Hearing songs about Allende and Pinochet and not knowing exactly what was going on, and then going to look in the fact that it was really undisputed that we overthrew the Chilean government in help of, because they had democratically elected a communist president. So kind of finding things out and realizing, God, there's so much I just don't know about the world, coming from, being a white middle-class male in the South. What's out there. And the more I got interested, the more it just seemed like a lot of things that were going on just weren't right. And so all my interest ended up kind of going that way. So it seemed like the law was a way to address a lot of that, that an individual can help one person, and you can help that person out of their problem, then you can help another person out of the same problem, or you can help somebody else out of the same problem, or you can try to change the law. You can try to create an environment where no one will have that problem anymore. So kind of seeing that, and as I grew up, it just seemed everything that I was interested in was more focused towards public interest type work, and kind of an early interest in the law. Honestly, I felt that I would probably be overseas working in more international legal issues. But the Peace Corps was a big part of that. I mean, going to the Peace Corps is on one side seems like a very magnanimous thing, but I think to most people who go into the Peace Corps, it's a very selfish thing, because you're really doing it for you. I mean, it's you want to do something for everybody else, but it's kind of something deep down inside that you want to do. But going there and being injured and having to come home really made me sit and evaluate the notion of why did I feel I had to leave the country to do a lot of good work, or why did I feel that I had to go, to sub-Saharan Africa to do it, or something. In reality, when we have a lot of issues here that need addressing. So I think that experience ultimately made me focus more on domestic issues and issues that we had here. So prior to that, I think I looked kind of outside the world to solve those problems, not recognizing the problems that we had here. So everything I've always done has been focused in that area. And never had an interest to work at a big law firm or do corporate legal issues or sit in office and write a contract. I can't imagine anything less exciting. So it's kind of always been focused towards trying to help. Being a prosecutor in law school was interesting. I had a professor who was very, from the outside, he was very liberal-minded, very defense-oriented, and I talked to him about some issues, and it was funny, one of the first things he said was, if you really want to make a difference, you should be a prosecutor. We said, the prosecutors just have so much control and power, and that was something I definitely found as being a prosecutor, that you get to make that recommendation. You get to decide, okay, what this person needs is jail time, or do they need drug treatment, or do they need counseling? What is the appropriate remedy for this person's situation? So you do have a lot of power, but prosecutors, just like defense attorneys, unfortunately the system is set up to move cases. It's set up to it's a numbers industry. So public defenders and people who are assigned to courtrooms on both sides, the focus unfortunately does become, how do we get a manageable caseload? We know we're going to have cases we're going to have to deal with, and it becomes an industry of working things out. We take this, we take that, kind of making the sausage. We always talk about that nobody wants to see the sausage made, and that's what it is. And it's a frustrating thing to see, to remind people about what is happening. I think I was very lucky to work with a group of people in my courtroom, and Judge Constance Russell in the Fulton Superior Court, who kind of always pushed the fact that we were working with people and tried to make sure that was a focus. But it was frustrating. There were times when legal issues would come up and I would tell an attorney, you need to file a motion on a certain thing because of an issue, and the response would be, no, my client will take a plea today. And I would try to say, okay, but there's a legitimate issue here. It's not clear enough for me to dismiss the case, but there's some serious issues that happen, and the judge really needs to look at this to decide what should happen in this case. And being told again, no, my client will just plead today. So seeing that notion of what becomes of the industry is to close cases that day, to push numbers, and that's really it. It's not an in-depth analysis of this person, their case, what's going on, and it's just sad. I don't really know a way around it in entirely, because we have so many cases pending. It's hard not to do that, but people need to be seen as individuals and looked at, and that is the problem with the system. It just doesn't account for that. It doesn't allow for that. Unfortunately, the more serious the case, the more that happens. On a murder case, I spend a lot of time. I do a lot of things. The defense attorney spends a lot of time, spends a lot of energy. But those aren't the majority of the cases. The majority of the cases are small offenses that get pushed through the system and kind of churned away. And it's not just the victims. It's not just the defendants, it's the victim as well. Victims can call up and say, what happened to my case? My car was stolen. I want to know what happened to my case. And they're told, oh, your case was settled 2 months ago. Everybody kind of gets lost in the system.